Peace and welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversations. Folks, we got a lot to talk about today. Let's talk about the Respect for Marriage Act that just was passed by the Senate, the implications of this landmark legislation. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, I need to share with you some latest information about what folks are doing all across the country, especially in New York, where the mayor of New York might be penalizing those who suffer from mental health disorders. We'll have that conversation. Plus, can we at least talk about what's going on in the food and lifestyle world? We're going to bring on the CEO of Food and Lifestyle TV to talk about how he's taking Black cooks to the next level. So much to cover. Plus, I got another Culture crew member that's going to be joining us for the conversation. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Did you miss me? Because I missed each and every one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. We got a lot to talk about, and I'm very, very excited because we do have another voice that's going to be joining us this afternoon. I got my brother Sinedu Nkwakwafor. He's going to be joining us in a moment. And I got my sister, new Culture crew member. She's going to be a contributor. She is an attorney. She is a political strategist. She's a host of a podcast and a YouTube channel. Suzette Speaks is going to be joining us in a few moments. And we're super excited to talk about the latest around so many issues. But here's what I want you to do. First and foremost, make sure y'all go to our website right now and stream us at blackstarnetwork.com. And right there at Black Star Network, folks, you will find all of the latest news and information about what's going on in Black America all across the country and around the world. And it's an opportunity for you to continue to support us. Now, yesterday we weren't on. And so today I'm just throwing it out there because yesterday was actually Giving Tuesday. If you're not familiar with Giving Tuesday, yesterday was Giving Tuesday. And that's a chance for you to give to your favorite charity, to your favorite cause. And so today I want to just put it out there that, look, Black Star Network needs your support. We need your support and we want your support. So make sure y'all go on to blackstarnetwork.com. Give what you can because this platform doesn't run itself. but give what you can. And then most importantly, continue to let people know that we are on air. We are streaming live. We have fantastic content. And most importantly, we keep you at the forefront of the conversation. So blackstarnetwork.com. And also make sure you follow us on all of our social media at Black Star Network on Twitter and IG. All right, folks, I'm super excited to be back with you live today because we have so much to talk about. Well, let me just say that as we have in these conversations, of course, if you're not familiar with what we talk about and how we have these chats, we want to include you in the discussion. So if you're seeing us right now, Black Star Network, if you're streaming us on Facebook or on YouTube, make sure you join us in the chat because we would love to hear what you got to say as we have these discussions. All right, let's jump right into it. The first one is a big one. This is a landmark piece of legislation that was just recently passed by the Senate yesterday. And let me pull this up, folks. This is about the Respect for Marriage Act. And this is the landmark legislation that will federally protect same-sex marriage as well as interracial marriage. Big piece of legislation. The Senate passed landmark legislation protecting same-sex marriage rights. And let me just give you a quick update about this, and then we're going to bring in our culture crew to be a part of this. And then, of course, I want to hear from what you guys have to say on this. And I'm just pulling this up here. But take a look here. Let me just share with you how the vote went down in Keenan and Ariel. If we could post this. Let's talk a little bit about this, folks. The vote to pass the Respect for Marriage Act was bipartisan. Look at the numbers on this, folks. 61 to 36, with a significant block of Republicans joining every Democrat in approving the landmark bill. It now heads to the House, where it's expected to pass as early as next week. Wisconsin Democrat Senator Tammy Baldwin, she's the first openly gay person to serve in the Senate, said its passage should allay the concerns of same-sex and interracial couples worried their civil marriages could be stripped away. Now, the Senate has the opportunity to put those fears to rest and give millions of people in same-sex and interracial marriages the certainty, dignity, and respect that they need and deserve. This is what Senator Tammy Baldwin had to say about this situation. So let's jump right into the conversation. I got my sister, Suzette Speaks. She serves as an attorney. She's out of Florida, down in the sunny places of Miami, where it's always hot, whether it's politically or otherwise, or the weather. But we're very excited to have her joining us here on The Culture, and she'll be joining us here weekly on Wednesdays. But Suzette is joining us as she's an attorney, a political strategist, a host, and she's doing a number of other great things. Suzette, thank you so much for joining us here on The Culture. It's always a pleasure to connect with you. How are you this afternoon?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for that warm welcome, my brother. I'm excited. I'm in the chat saying hello to everyone watching.
Right.
It's an honor to be here, a part of your platform. Glad to be a contributor. Looking forward to some great conversations. And greetings from not so sunny. It's raining right now, but warm Miami.
Okay, it's raining down in Miami. So you're in one sunny place and I'm in another sunny place. Okay, I hear you. I definitely hear you. All right, I got to bring in my brother, Shinedu Wakwuofor, who is a digital diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist. He's also doing some fantastic work in the field of social justice and a lot of other spaces. My man, brother Shinedu, how you feeling, sir?
Man, it feels good to be back on the air.
I'm telling you, right?
Man,
right?
We can't be taking breaks.
I had to check my turkey, bro. I had to make sure my weight was good. You feel me? Hey, look, let's talk about this same-sex marriage, interracial marriage. Suzette, I'm going to start with you on this. Respect for Marriage Act. Some people thought that this was going to be on the chopping block. I remember Clarence Thomas kind of hinting at that this may be a problem back when the Supreme Court made that landmark decision about Roe v. Wade. After that decision was made, he said, and yes, we're going to see about this whole same-sex marriage act too, kind of hinting that this might not be something that's going to happen. My question is for you, Suzette, is it still a vulnerable piece of legislation, even though the Senate's passed it yesterday, the House is expected to pass it next week. Can it still be chopped down by the Supreme Court?
Possibly. I thank you for that kind of toss up, because the reason why we even got to this point was because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We have a new dynamic on the U.S. Supreme Court: 6 conservative justices, the majority, and 3 who showed us really that there is no longer this concept that I learned so long ago in law school called stare decisis, right? Let precedents stand. I'm using a little Latin there. But with their actions just a few months ago and showing us how there's no such thing as standing case law, where cases are brought all the way up to the Supreme Court and now, are the lay of the land. So Democrats actually started to pay attention once that decision was overturned. And now you saw in Congress how important it was to so many lawmakers on behalf of their constituents to put this into law, to codify what many Americans probably already thought was something that was a part of our legal landscape, that people could marry people within, different races, different classes, and of the same gender. But no, they're adding this added layer of protection by introducing legislation to codify it, right? Not just relying on court cases that now we have seen can be overturned depending on the dynamics among Supreme Court justices. So we've seen what they're calling bipartisan support. I think it was 63 of the 100 senators voting for this act. It had that included, I think, 11 or 12 Republicans at this time, and now it will go to the House. So it seems as if there are numbers in the House that will also support the legislation. However, there's still some back and forth among senators. Of course, both houses have to agree on a version that gets sent to the president. There's some back and forth about religious freedom that is constantly being raised by the more conservative members of the Senate body. That being said, there are caveats. And if you look at the language, I don't know if we can discuss it at length, but within the time we have, there are caveats that have been placed within this writing of the bill, which says that states have to acknowledge other states' marriages. That is, that this does not require every state to now accept same-sex marriage or to perform same-sex marriage. It just simply states, and it's 3 main points of this piece of legislation, that they must recognize same-sex marriages performed in other jurisdictions. That's huge. So right now, as case law stands, Obergefell, right now it is the national framework under this case law that was passed, same-sex marriage, being the law of the land. This actually kind of draws back the boundary of where it becomes a states' rights issue, not necessarily a nationally recognized form of marriage. However, it allows states, even though they may not perform same-sex marriages, they must, by this legislation, recognize same-sex marriages performed in other jurisdictions. That's huge. And when it comes to the religious freedom aspect that is constantly brought up with regards to making sure that rights of, for example, more conservative Christians and various religions, I think the loudest that we see in Congress happen to be from the conservative Christian side points of view. It is also a small point or caveat that is written within this piece of legislation that allows, according to certain senators on the Republican side, the religious freedom aspect to remain. So what does that mean? That there is, and I was just going over the language, I don't know if you have it, Farajii, that it is limiting religious and nonprofit organizations from having to perform, or I think the word they use is support, same-sex marriage. So they're trying to have, this so-called compromise where indirectly they're saying every state can now make this the law, because other states will have to recognize wherever it was legal. If same-sex marriage was legal in that state, if you move to another state where it's not legal, you still must recognize that that marriage as a legal entity. But they are putting language in, or this current version contains language that many of the senators on the Republican side who have supported it claim now allows for the protection of religious freedom. But yeah, there's a lot to be seen as to whether there is
Yeah.
more language added by the House, but we'll
Yeah.
see. It seems to have the support currently.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you bring up some excellent points on that, on that, Suzette. Sinead, here's what the president said. Then I want to get your take. Let's post that second quote before us, team. This is what the president said. He said, with today's bipartisan Senate passage of the Respect for Marriage Act, the United States is on the brink of reaffirming a fundamental truth: love is love, and Americans should have the right to marry the person they love. Now, this is what he said in the statement. The president also said it will also ensure that for generations to follow, LGBTQIA plus youth will grow up knowing that they too can lead full, happy lives and build families of their own. Now, there were, according to the USA Today, a number of Republicans argued the bill would trample on the rights of churches and other faith-based organizations, which would be punished if they refuse to participate in or recognize gay unions. But bipartisan sponsors of the bill said the religious freedom language inserted in the measure would protect those entities from such infringement. And I could, Sinead, Suzette is talking about that language from the legal standpoint, but I want you to speak to the cultural side of this, that people still feel like maybe we're getting into a space where, that it's going to be harder and harder for people to say something if they don't agree with this bill. How do we make sure that the conversation around this bill and around this issue of same-sex marriage, and look, let's even talk about interracial marriage, because this, even though it's 2022, some people still have a problem with interracial marriage, not just black and white, but it could be black and Asian, Latino and white, and all of the other combinations. So how culturally do we have this conversation, Sinead, around this issue without stepping on folks' toes?
Well, I think it's important to have the conversation, even if you are stepping on folks' toes, right? I think people need to be more comfortable in having conversations, even in spaces where they do not understand. This is a very interesting one for multiple reasons. The church continues to be a very contentious place when it comes from, maybe one day the Catholic Church says no, and then the other day when they can find it beneficial for them, they're going to say yes. And I just spoke of one religion. I don't know what the others are doing, but we all know stories of how other religions practice A and preach B. But I'm not here to judge. God can only judge. I think what's interesting about this case is that people should be allowed to have their preferences, right? And I think as it pertains to preferences, if you prefer, as it pertains to interracial, if you prefer to not, do an interracial person, you're a white person, you want to be a black person, you're a white person, you want to be an Asian, that should be your prerogative. Right. But if you do choose, the law should just protect it. And I think it's that simple. And as it pertains to the LGBTQ thing, I think what's so funny to me about this is, and I've said this many times, what is concerning to me about this bill is it doesn't speak about sexual gender minorities, same gender loving folk, right? LGBTQIA is more or less white. That is kind of the white terminology, the group. But there are also same gender loving folks, which is usually the folks who identify as African American, Latino, Latinx, who don't feel like they're included in a lot of these legislations because these are legislating the issues. And what's interesting is if you watch when CNN, ABC, NBC, when they do the reels, it's seldom you'll see a black person in there. It's always white folks, over and over and over again. So I'm concerned that a bigger issue is being propagated as we are, quote unquote, moving forward.
So is it necessary, and Suzette and Sinead, is it necessary that we kind of advocate for the minority of LGBTQIA plus community to be heard, to be seen? Is that necessary, or what? How do we advance that? Because I know that gay and lesbian and other black folks in that community, they don't. I know folks in that community who feel like, you got the white folks and then you got black folks. There's still a great division. And to your point, Sinead, so should we advocate for that? And we still got to deal with the fact that even in the black community, homosexuality, lesbianism, transgender, is a part of the community. There's still some very, very hard pushback, Suzette, from Black folks about Black folks, how other Black folks live.
How real can we keep it on the culture? Because we stepping
like 1,000% real, Suzette.
Oh,
You love the show, you watch it. Come on.
I grow very, very weary of, you know, just stating what many of us know is a part of our culture. And it has a root, many of us growing up in a you know, Christian worldview, and other more conservative religious practices, that many times one thing that we cannot acknowledge, I think, within our community is that there is a lot of anti LGBTQIA sentiment among our community. Can we say that out loud so we can address it? So when we're dealing with this issue, I think it's disingenuous sometimes to kind of especially because there's such this idea that Black people, who are the cornerstone of the Democratic Party, necessarily agree with every single part of the platform. It is oftentimes where a very religiously conservative base is meeting very liberal policies when taken into account in terms of our traditional values, to which many Black folks really do cling. To answer your question as to whether this legislation needs to be, I guess, I will answer your question in terms of maybe in the bill's writing. It is up to Congress, and quite possibly maybe should be expanded to be more specific in terms of all the different gender and sexual minorities that possibly could be affected by this type of legislation. But I think we are not necessarily within the Black community very comfortable when we are addressing this particular issue, because there is a lot of pushback that we can't say out loud. We have to keep it quiet. Right. Everybody who know that there's oftentimes this kind of mixed feeling of, yes, we want equal rights for everyone because we have been marginalized and we have been pushed to the side and discriminated against. And we don't want that to happen to anybody else. But there's also sometimes this duality where it's like, well, I'm taught because of my religious belief and my church and my other, you know, religious systems, that this behavior may be against what God desires for human beings. This is a very real conversation. But nonetheless, I agree with our brother here on the panel that there are a lot more issues that are needing attention. I think it shows the power of the lobby that pushed for this to come forward. I think, again, people got very afraid when we saw what happened with Roe v. Wade. We took this one very seriously, and look how quickly this came about. I would say there are other issues that for Black people, we feel like are part of an umbrella of equity issues, are part of an umbrella of things that matter to us, but are sometimes tabled, if you will, and are not necessarily given this type of speedy kind of response. I'm not saying that it shouldn't
Absolutely.
be. But I'm saying, like, we wait in the back. We in the back of the line right now when it comes to policy making, because we are so-called the safe vote. We are always going to, quote, be Democrats, and we don't necessarily get the prioritized policy making, as we can see here. But I do think with the minorities who are also, it's a moment of cross-sectional kind of intervention where, you know, you have Black people who happen to be gay, Black people who happen to be trans. A lot of these issues are a part of our community. If we love someone or know someone or have a family member who is a part of this community, it does touch us indirectly. But I do think we have a responsibility of Black people, as Black people, for me, my perspective, to speak up on behalf of all those who are marginalized.
Yes.
That's how I see it.
I agree.
So I would say I would agree with anything that adds for more protection being added to some of this legislation.
I agree. And you know, Sinead, I think that to Suzette's point, it requires us to evolve, or at least, you know, become much more mature in understanding that there are a lot of different people in this world, especially within our community. And so at the end of the day, everybody is a human being. At the end of the day, folks just want to be afforded the space to be themselves, and given the rights to do that, right? Without harming, of course. And this is the fine line, I think, Suzette, and you both know how to protect without harming another group of people. You got so many different groups of people right now in this country, not just in nationality, not just in ethnicity, but in how we each see ourselves, how we self-identify. And I think that that's a very, very hard space to be in when you're trying to protect people, but then trying to respect people's wishes on how they want to be seen and presented to the world. What's your take on that, bro? And then we get to some comments.
Yeah, I think, just simply, and I agree with my sister. We're on the same page. Listen, man, and this is directly to Black people. We are on the Black Star Network. Black folk need to evolve, and we can't waste time on this, right? If you're truly for the upliftment of Black folk, men, women, or whatever, and you believe that, this issue, that another issue could have came, and we have other Black issues. Think about the Black LGBTQ or same-gender loving people that I'm talking about, who are receiving both sides of being, feeling not accepted, or both sides of being on the left or right-hand side of justice, if you will. I think it's very important that as a community that we, in my opinion, that we mature our feelings, and that we make sure that in this issue that we are representing those sexual gender minorities, like the same gender loving African American and Latinx folks who need our help, because lest we forget, on Black issues, which these same SGL and SGM folk belong to, when those general Black issues come up, they're the ones on the front line and they're the ones organizing. So we can't forget that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's go to some of the comments here. And from our online culture crew, folks are checking in. And of course, this is a big, big conversation. Corinna, you check this out. You kicked us off this afternoon. You say, look, I'm glad the same-sex marriage passed. However, the 12 GOP that voted for this will not vote yes to codify Roe. It's interesting how this bill was prioritized over women's reproductive rights. Ooh, I want to throw it in. And I think, Corinna, you're making an excellent point. So this bill was able to get passed. Roe v. Wade was chopped, and voting rights is chopped. It's been chopped up. So some people would say, Suzette, like, oh, this is part of the quote unquote the LGBTQIA agenda. Can we go that far?
We can't get distracted. Although I want our policy issues at the fore. So I think we can walk and chew gum. I think this is a very easy way of trying to pit groups against each other instead of making both priorities: women's rights, Voting Rights Act, George Floyd Act. These should have been taken up by our Democrats while they were in power. We have a lame duck session that'll be over soon. And it's very interesting. I agree with the commentator. Look, this is what we could find bipartisan support for. Great. What else? What else? I feel like, some of the major issues that we had starting in 2020 have kind of, slowly drifted to the sidelines, and it isn't fair. But again, we have to come up with a political strategy so that Black issues are not, secondary, or sometimes even, pushed to the side, for a whole entire term. So that, it's never dealt with, and they'll be all right. They'll be around for the next election. I'm not sure I have the full solution for how, but it's like we don't want to, again, be fooled into this is a small piece of pie and y'all got to share it. No, give me more of the pie. Let's try to create an equity among all of the places in which our laws, our system of government has kind of left behind on purpose, right, for the first couple hundred years of our country. And let's try to correct those things. But again, it's interesting to see what what politicians have the political will to do. So we can definitely go back and forth as to why this one is different. But yeah, I do agree with the commentator that it just seems like our priorities are getting kind of pushed by the wayside.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Janelle, you checked in and said that the sooner we recognize the value of coalition building, the stronger we'll be and the closer we'll be to winning. Community is bigger than who lives in your gates. Sinead, I'm going to throw that one to you. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And if you need to be reminded, Look up the statistics of Black folk that followed MLK Jr. when he was alive. It was not that high. It increased when he died. It was allyship that helped us. Division is real, allyship is strong. And sometimes you're going to need allyship from different groups of people. And sometimes you're going to have to bring that collective unity, if you will, to get your agenda. Who knows? Maybe one day, and that's the beauty of life, quote unquote, who knows? Maybe one day the gay agenda, and I put it in air quotes to be facetious, but that could help us move the Black agenda. We don't know, but we have to try to align ourselves with people who are getting wins. That's my belief.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings me to Conscious Thought. Conscious Thought checked in and said, look, a question to be asked is this: can we see beyond our differences in order to make progress? And I think that is a very valuable question. Can we see beyond our differences in order to make progress? And Sinead and Suzette, I always thought that this was probably one of the main barriers to the lack of progress for Black folks, is that we get caught up in the small things, like the way a person lives, or where they live, or you know what I mean, or how they identify. No, I'm not Black. I'm Hebrew Israelite, or I'm this, or I'm that, or that. And it's like you get caught up in all this stuff, and it's like, bro, we're not making progress in this system of things. We're still far behind, and I think we often trip ourselves up over the small things, and then we lose sight of the big things. Suzette, am I wrong in that?
No, I think you're right. I think these culture war issues are what grabs headlines and makes people react. You get this, type of reaction where you are afraid. You are, first of all, I just want to say, if anybody has been in any Black church for any modicum of time, we know gay people been in there. Gay people been in our choirs. Gay people been directed. Can I say that out loud?
No, we can't.
Say that Jesus died for everybody? Can I just say it all? And the fact that, again, they're trying to polarize and create a scenario where it's us versus them, right? And I shout out to soldiers, and I wanted to bring it up when we talk about World AIDS Day. People like Shirley Ralph, where she has put so much work into the fight, only to, when she started out in the 80s, many Black people were like, why are you fighting for people with AIDS? Why are you looking at this marginalized community? They're doing something wrong, or they're being punished for that. God is not like that. We have to really say out loud where, some of the rhetoric is coming from that's being exploited in order to kind of pit us against each other politically. And even though, like I said, you have the right to believe what you like and raise your kids the way you want, we have to be very careful when we try to enforce that upon other people, right? We ran from England, and I say we, the collective, we, the United States, in terms of the folks who came over and founded this country, for religious freedom, right? Before, you had landowners, you had serfs, you had people living like kings, you had people who were peasants. And they said, no, let a person be able to come. Of course, we have a very checkered history when it comes to violence against Indigenous peoples. We can get into that. But on just the basic level, it was a desire for people to live as they chose or as they choose to live. And we can't, I think it also goes back to our education system and teaching some of what actually happens in history and why there were movements of people away from systems of governments into other systems of government, and what it means to really embrace this thing we call freedom. Right? How come there are rules placed on this person that they can't live how they choose to live? You do not have to agree with how they live, right? How come it is, it's very difficult sometimes for people to kind of see and empathize with the walk of other people who, in the media, in the church house, sometimes get, demonized. What about the rest of the people who are doing all kinds of stuff and breaking God's law? I don't want to get into it, right? We have the adulterers, we have we have everybody else doing every other thing, but God forgives and God loves, right? So I think, we got to be careful. I think these are lightning rods, kind of fake out type, look over here, move the ball here, so we can focus on, I'm different from that group. That group is getting more than me. But I think the focus has to be on how can we move, an agenda that is, where we have, I think the word was intersectionality that I was looking for, where we can help one another to progress forward and protect one another's human rights. That's where we should really be focused on.
Absolutely. Look, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, folks, we're going to switch gears on the conversation from looking at this latest piece of legislation to looking at what's happening in New York. I want to get my esteemed Culture Crew members, Suzette and Sinead's view on what the mayor of New York is doing, Mayor Eric Adams, as he is looking to try to use, I would say, some very different ways to address the mental health issue in New York. If people aren't following the rules and they are suffering from mental health, how he is involuntarily putting them in some sort of institution. And we're asking this question: is he essentially punishing those who suffer from mental health? So we'll have that conversation when we come back. So stay with us. A lot to get to here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We want to talk about now what's happening in the city of New York, where Mayor Eric Adams is saying he is going to take more dramatic steps to address an issue that has affected New Yorkers, which is the issue of mental health. Seeing people who suffer from mental health on the streets of New York. Now, the mayor has put out a policy saying that those who are suffering from mental health, who are walking around, will essentially be hospitalized, to get them off the streets, even if they may not pose any significant risk or harm to other people. Take a look at this. New York City is to remove mentally ill people from streets against their will. Now, here's what the mayor said about this, folks, and then I want to get my culture crew members' take on this. Take a look at this. He said, this was what was reported by the New York Times, that he announced this major effort on Tuesday to remove people with severe untreated mental illness from the city's streets and subways, saying New York had a, quote, moral obligation to address a crisis we see all around us. The effort will involve hospitalizing people involuntarily, even if they do not pose an immediate risk of harm to others. The common misunderstanding persists that we cannot provide involuntary assistance unless the person is violent, Mr. Adams said. He said, this myth must be put to rest. Going forward, we will make every effort to assist those who are suffering from mental illness and whose illness is endangering them by preventing them from meeting their basic human needs. So, folks, we're asking the question, is New York City penalizing mental health sufferers? And I want to bring back my culture crew, Sinead Du and Suzette, to get their take on this. First, Suzette, let me start with you. Again, we got to look back at the legal implications of this. Is this legal?
That is the question. The devil, Farajii, is in the details. When I first saw this story yesterday, my eyes were like wide open because I thought to myself, Mayor Adams has a tough job. So first, let me kind of take you through my thought process as to why, because I always look at these stories and think, why is he doing this? So we know that the way he's presented it in that statement, it seems like this is an attempt at compassion for the people who cannot take care of themselves, people who are homeless, people who are, living on the street in New York, which is a big problem. The other side of my kind of inquisitive legal brain went to the ideas around the politics behind why he might be attempting this. And that kind of led me to the ideas around crime and violence and the perception that New York, among New Yorkers, that New York is not as safe as it once was, right? That there's a lot more crime happening on the subway in and around communities where, people have to do business, people travel from uptown to downtown, midtown, and they are experiencing kind of this raised level of uncertainty in terms of what's going on in the street. So looking at the statement that you just read, I thought to myself, what is the legal framework in New York state law? And this has not been written. This is like an executive order of sorts. They haven't put out the details as to who can make this type of decision to put a person, take away, and I'm looking at it in terms of like habeas corpus, their body, their right to exist in society by determining whether or not they are a threat to themselves. So I had to use the framework I'm used to, right? I live in Florida. I don't know New York law, and I haven't seen what the details of this proposal will be. And I think they're still trying to figure that out. But in Florida, for example, we have a law called the Baker Act, right? This is a 72-hour mental health hold written in the 70s when we saw a shift in our country from institutionalization of people with mental health challenges to now trying to get them to live a better quality of life instead of going through, the hospitals where they were strapped in and strapped down and locked away in rooms and things like this. We saw a shift in mental health care in our country, which was to try to treat people and leave them hopefully more functioning better wherever they lived and in their communities, and trying to do more of kind of like an outpatient response. So here we are, Mayor Adams looking at this saying, wait a minute, I want to take the rights of individuals away and give it to, in his statement there, he's talking about law enforcement. Now, in the Baker Act scenario I was bringing up in Florida, our law allows mental health professionals, allows police, and allows a judge, it can be any of those, to fill out a form to require attestation from a witness to say what kind of behavior is putting the person or other people at in danger. But the difference in this is that he's saying people who are not even an imminent threat to themselves or someone else could fall into this rubric, which is very dangerous, in my opinion, unless there are literally, it has to be the best safeguards ever. Now, under the Florida law, we have to have 2 mental health professionals diagnose a person within the 72 hours, saying, yes, this person needs to be institutionalized for at least 72 hours to, restabilize, calm down, get the situation back to at least some degree of equilibrium. But there is a deep understanding here in our Florida culture. Baker Act is a serious matter, and one that we don't take lightly. That's why it has to go through certain checks and balances. Unless I see what the details are of this type of move, for someone who is not showing an imminent threat to themselves and to others, being a part of the population just because you're homeless, to be institutionalized, I think it's a very slippery slope.
But it also opens the door, and Sinead, I want to get your take on this, because in Baltimore and Los Angeles and in the cities that I've been in, I see people walk in the streets talking to themselves, people who are clearly in need of mental health assistance, right? But they're like talking to themselves. And part of me is like, man, they should be in a place where that someone may not try to take advantage of them, right? They should be in a place where they're safe, where they're getting the necessary help. But the part that strikes me the most on this, Sinead, is the involuntary part. Like if a person is not giving their permission to be taken to a place where we don't know. I mean, we don't, and that's the thing, the city could say, all right, I'm taking you, one of our culture crew members online say they could take you to Bellevue in New York, right? They could take you to a place, or they could take you to some I don't know, some hospital. In Baltimore, we had Shepherd Pratt. They take you to Shepherd Pratt, right? But then at the end of the day, there's still something very weird about this, because it feels like, okay, we're going to just throw these folks out. That way we can clear the streets. And part of me, Sinead, believes that this might open the door with people, and I'm talking about Black folks. I ain't talking about white folks. I'm talking about Black folks saying, yeah, we need to do that. Because I don't want to walk around and be reminded that some people suffer from mental health disabilities and mental health illnesses. It's just kind of weird, bro. What would you say as a especially doing your work as a diversity, equity, inclusion specialist? How do we look at this?
It's so much thoughts going on here, and I'm glad we got the perspective. It's always good to have both perspectives. We got the perspective of the legal practitioner, and I'll give you the perspective from the more cultural level. Like, yet again, first of all, that involuntary thing is very dangerous. Second of all, we have to understand perspective. Like, Eric Adams, you're a cop. This does
former
not
cop, yeah. He's pro-police. He's pro-police, bro.
Well with people. It's not going to sit well with people. It doesn't look good. And for me, as someone who lives in the city of Baltimore, and I've been to New York, I've been to LA, what I tend to see is that everybody wants the homeless or folks who are suffering from homelessness, which is what the HHS describes. They just want them out the way.
Right.
Wants to solve the problem. And it is the continuous cyclical issue of this country where when a problem presents itself, everybody presents everything but the solution. This is no different than how in the education system, we do the same thing. It's a cycle. How it's like, okay, how do we get these folks over there? Oh, we're trying to help you. No one is actually taking the time to do the actual work where it comes to how did these people get here?
Right.
How did this happen? And I think what America has a hard time solving, and every Black person knows this, is addressing how the hell we got here in the first place. And because we don't want to address that, we come up with these erroneous solutions that actually exasperate the problem. Involuntary in 2022, do you know that implication to folks who are Latinx? Do you know the implication of folks who are African American? Now, what will be the stats of those who are getting picked up? We already know who's going to be picked up the most. This is very concerning. And my question is, are we here to just make rich people comfortable so they don't have to walk by people who might be suffering from a mental illness? And also putting it in the whole involuntary space. Now what we're doing is we are now ripping back the Band-Aid of mental health issues. What we just started working on normalizing, we're now taking it back to, you're crazy. You have to be packaged up. You have to be put into a van and taken somewhere, and that goes right back to medical mistrust. I think this is very tone deaf, and I'm not sure who's advising him, but this is not a good idea. And with all due respects to him as mayor, sir, you're not a health and or a legal practitioner. I don't even want to hear about this from your mouth.
Right. Look, Ming Lena Tasa Sir says, look, I'm in New York City, and the mental health and mental illness situation is getting way out of hand. Well, let's go to what you said, Sinead. Why is mental illness getting way out of hand? Because why is people, it's like the homelessness situation, right? Like, why are people literally laying on the streets, right? In any major city in the country, right?
Yeah,
because
I'm sorry to jump in.
No, I'm just saying, Suzanne, you can jump in, definitely jump into this. But I'm just saying, like when we look at this is, and then you're right, Sinead, America don't want to go back to the reason why, even though I truly believe in this country, we know why. Because the systems don't treat people like human beings, man. Like we we want to all believe, and I'm saying those of us who are blessed to have a home or have a place to lay our heads at, or who have some quote unquote, we're normal, we are sane outside of the normal stuff, right? Like we are functioning individuals. We're like, oh, okay, but we understand that the systems has created this situation of mental illness. The systems has created this situation of homelessness. And nobody is, instead of looking at corporations, instead of looking at policy, instead of looking at the larger system of capitalism, we look at the people who are most impacted by these systems as the problem and not as the victims, Suzette. And this is the problem.
I think my brother here makes a great point. When it comes to trying to figure out the origins of what systematically has led to so many more people not being able to afford rent in New York. It's too expensive, right? The average Joe, the average Jane, and all those in between are looking at, a very difficult lifestyle when it comes to, rent increases. And we also know that, inflation has been killing everybody softly and now loudly. So when we are trying to kind of put a Band-Aid on the symptom, my question was, does New York have the capacities within its mental health infrastructure to deal with what will no doubt be a deluge, an influx of people who now you're saying can be kind of institutionalized for however long? Like, I really need to see the details of this proposal, because when we're putting this much trust in law enforcement or whoever else may become designated persons, we need to talk about that training. We need to talk about cultural sensitivity. I know people personally who had sorry.
No. I'm just throwing it out there because Guess what?
Yes.
Who's picking up these folks? Because now you bringing up a whole nother level of concern.
I know people been shot. They brother had a mental breakdown. Their cousin had a mental breakdown. We in Black families have to think twice when we have a young Black boy who is sitting on the porch, having a mental break. Do you call the police? Because I know dispatchers don't tell the police that's coming what is actually happening. Goosebumps is all over me right now thinking about the several families I know personally who had to bury people because they were trying to get mental health help, where there's jurisdictions that don't require a mental health professional to be on the scene, to be involved in this. I really hope they add these layers of checks and balances, because to give it to law enforcement alone, I'm not quite, give me a judge, right? Give me a finder of fact present it to somebody who is supposed to be objective to say, this is the behavior we've witnessed, this is what we've seen, this is what's on the record, this is why what he was doing when he was arrested, or whatever it is. Because the involuntary part, although can be legal, that's how it is in Florida, if they cannot perceive their own danger, right? If they're having that break with reality, that's why it's involuntary, where you can't understand why you need to be. But I think it can also be used as a kind of a blanket tool that may be utilized incorrectly when someone wants to just get someone off the street and put them away. So yeah, there's so many questions I have about this, but I just
there's a lot of questions. And Sinead, I know you got to jump off, but here's the thing: like when you talk about, and I'm glad Suzette brought this up, when you're talking about the police, we already are pushing for the police to be culturally sensitive. Department after department across this country, they have yet to really have a training curriculum that speaks to mental illness and mental health issues, right? When addressing individuals when they come to, a scene. So this is not even, this is way ahead. So now you're asking a police officer to, if somebody calls up, you in the Bronx, you in Brooklyn, you in Manhattan, and you say, look, I got this crazy man outside of my store. Now, the crazy man may not be bothering nobody. He might just be sitting there just mumbling to himself, but he may not be bothering. Now you got the police saying, I need you to get this guy off. Get him away from my store. Now the police have the right to just grab up somebody.
There has to be,
with no understanding. Now that's putting that. Now what I think the mayor is doing indirectly, and I may be way wrong on this, Sinead and Suzette, but now you're putting the police officers in a difficult situation where they got to come in as mental health counselors and therapists to figure out how to address this situation, right? And they're just not trained for that. Unless you have a mental health counselor with you on call. Look, I haven't even looked at the numbers, Suzette and Sinead, but I'm wondering how many people on the streets of New York, right, are actually suffering from mental illness. Probably thousands.
How many of us gonna get snatched up first? That's the real question.
The better question. I'll take you a step further. We're here snatching up people with quote unquote mental illnesses. What about the police officers with mental illnesses? The ones that think that toy guns are real guns, the ones that feared for their life when the person
Come on, bro.
Nothing on them.
Bro.
Like I've said many times, when we do not address what's really at stake, we end up putting ourselves in this cyclical stew of nothingness. Like when we talked about defunding the police, y'all hated the term, fine, I'll say it differently. When we talked about redistributing funds, you all had an issue. We still have not gotten our police officers. Now, let me go on their side. We still haven't even gotten our police officers. First of all, why are we calling them police officers? We need to continue to move towards public safety. Policing does not work. Public safety does. Research has proven that. When we're not even interested in making sure that the mental uprightness, if you will, of our public officials or our public safety officials are even on par, and these people who are not even quote unquote evaluated properly are now supposed to be judge and jury of, come on, man. Like, are we asking for more of the massacres of minorities?
Absolutely. And here's my greater concern, as we just threw this out there, but we're going to have to shut this conversation down. But here's my greater concern is Black youth. How many people will say you got some Black youth out here who are acting crazy, erratic, irrational? This situation, it just reeks of stop and frisk 10 times. You know what I mean? This situation can just go left very, very quickly. And I know I never lived in New York City, but I can only imagine what this is going to do in terms of the relationship between the police and the community, the relationship of our understanding of mental health issues and what to do to address this issue. And so this is going to be problematic. Suzette, we got like 30 seconds. Go.
Well, yeah, I think you guys brought up some very valid points when it comes to leadership from a police officer, former police chief, and understanding what is best for the community in a place that has not really mastered community-based policing. I think they have to be very careful. There has to be a lot of oversight. Mental health professionals should be involved in this process. We have to keep tabs on what's happening in terms of numbers of people that you are putting into these institutions and how do they have the right to petition to get out of them. We really have to protect people's rights as much as we can while we're trying to balance this so-called, interest in helping those who are suffering from mental health. This is a real issue. It's out there, and I think we got to see what the details provide.
Absolutely. Sinead, my brother, is always good to have you. Thank you for your spending some time with us this afternoon. We truly appreciate you, bro.
Thank you so much. And Suzette, I appreciate your expertise as well.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It's mine.
Absolutely. Suzette is going to stick around for us for the rest of the show, folks. But we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's have a conversation about honoring World AIDS Day, which is happening tomorrow. So stay with us. That conversation is up next. Plus, also, we're going to be checking in with the CEO of Food and Lifestyle TV later on. So we got a lot to get to in the next hour. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't wait till November 8th. We can vote today, y'all. Early vote started this week.
We're on Savannah State University's campus. We'll be dorm storming today, giving out treats for everyone. We hope to see everyone at the polls when it comes to November.
If you believe we got power, let them know. Make some noise. Put a fist up. I need to see a fist in the air because we got power. Come on, you put it up. Come get your shirt. We're out here in the streets of Savannah, Georgia. James, do not forget to go vote. I got you. If we vote the right people in, we can make a change. We can get these resources in our community.
I am a woman, and it is important that we have the say-so of what we want to do with our bodies.
We're concentrating on entrepreneurism, providing young people with resources and training that they need in order to change their trajectories. We want Black down. Democracy is on the ballot. Voting rights is on the ballot. Voting suppression is on the ballot. I am most passionate about those three combined because they all impact each other.
Savannah is my home. I care about my community, and I care about representation in my community.
Our voices are still going to be heard no matter what kind of obstacles try to come up against us to stop us from voting. We're still going to be standing our ground.
The effort that's being made to keep our communities from voting. So that makes me realize it's even more important, because if it wasn't important, they wouldn't be fighting to make sure we couldn't vote.
This doesn't stop this year. This is a forever movement.
we're going to exert our power as a people, walk in our rightful place. We're going to change our communities, fight for our communities, and build our communities.
Folks, welcome back to the second hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. And most importantly, we appreciate you for checking us out. If you missed the first hour, we had some great discussions. Make sure y'all check us out on the replay on our blackstarnetwork.com. You can go to Black Star Network, download the app, and for free, subscribe to the station and to the channel. And most importantly, continue to financially support us and support us by sharing the information and all of the latest news and information. So go make sure y'all check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, make sure y'all follow me on my social media at The Real Farajii on Instagram and on Twitter at Farajii as well. All right, folks, let's talk about World AIDS Day, which officially is kicking off tomorrow. And today we wanted to have conversations about where we are dealing with this epidemic, even though there have been significant progress that has been made about the disease and the condition, and most importantly, our understanding of it. But there are still some places that are left untapped in terms of understanding the implications and the impact that AIDS has had on our community. So here today to talk to us about World AIDS Day is Captain Janine Willis Marsh. She serves as part of the United States Public Health Service and director of the Office of Program Support, the HIV/AIDS Bureau, Health Resources and Services Administration. So Captain Marsh, thank you so much for being with us here on the Culture on the Black Star Network. We truly appreciate it. Wait a minute, hold on, Captain. We got you. Wait a minute, you saying some good stuff, but we can't hear you. So make sure you're not. There we go. There we go.
All right. I'm on.
There we go, Cap.
Okay. Thank you so much. I was actually listening to the previous show, put myself on mute.
Okay.
So it's an honor for me to be here today, and I really appreciate you inviting me to speak about something as important as HIV in our communities.
Absolutely. And of course, we're joined by our new culture crew member, Suzette Speaks, to give us some into her insight as well, as she hails from the great state of Florida, looking at the situation. Captain Marsh, I want to put something out that you and the Health and Human Services has put out. And I think the Health Resources and Services has put out HRSA. Take a look at some of these numbers, folks. Take a look. This is really impactful. Nearly 38 million people across the globe are living with HIV, including about 1.2 million Americans. The Ryan White HIV/AIDS program funds grants to cities, counties, states, and local community-based organizations to provide a comprehensive system of HIV primary medical care, medication, and essential support services to low-income people with HIV. That's good to know. And then check this out. More than half of people with diagnosed HIV in the United States receive services through this Ryan White HIV/AIDS program each year. In 2001, the program served more than 576,000 clients. And then finally, and then another point is in 2021, 89.7% of clients served by the program were virally suppressed, which is an increase from 69.5% in 2010 and higher than the 64.6% viral suppression national average in 2021. And then finally, people with HIV who take HIV medication as prescribed and reach and maintain viral suppression cannot sexually transmit the virus. Wow. 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 Captain Marsh, first and foremost, it seems like there are some gains being made here, that we are in a much different place. I remember, because I was a little boy, so we're talking about 40 years ago, right? When HIV was and AIDS was like the death sentence of a person, right? Now we got people who are living with the virus, who are thriving in their lives. And now we even got to a point where you can't sexually, if you're taking your meds, you can't sexually transmit HIV.
That's
Wow.
right. Yes.
So something is happening. Some good things are happening, Cap.
Absolutely, and like you stated, there have been so many advances in HIV care and treatment over the years. It used to be a death sentence, now it isn't. And one of the messages that we definitely want everybody to know is that if you take your medication as prescribed, and even that has come a long way, in that it used to be that you had to take a bunch of pills every day. Now you can take one pill a day or get one injection a month and to be virally suppressed. Then the caveat is you have to take your medication as prescribed or get your injections as prescribed. That will allow the virus to be undetectable in your system. So if it can't be detected, then you can't transmit the virus to other people.
Wow. So Suzette, when we look at this, right, like this is eye-opening, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Do you feel like, Suzette and Kath, I want to get your take on this, but Suzette, do you feel like that people are getting it now? Like we're understanding the significance of this?
Somewhat, and in terms of the wonderful progress we've made in terms of medicine that allows you to live a full life. As you stated, back when I was a little girl, I look back at it was like a death sentence when someone said AIDS or HIV or something that we thought. I mean, I remember a cousin of mine that passed, and I just remember him being skin and bones in a long-term care home. As a little girl, I was like, why did my parents bring me here? But I'm glad they did. But it was the first real touch, feel, see, smell experience I had with HIV. Knowing that my city, Miami, is still almost always at the top of the list for people living with HIV or highest levels of transmission. And again, it depends on where you look. I still think there is a somewhat of a ways to go when it comes to tackling it within our community. Black people still are the most infected. We are the largest population living with a positive diagnosis. But thank goodness for what the captain has described as this wonderful new medical breakthrough that we can have people live with this virus, but it almost is undetectable, meaning when they go to get a test after a while, you don't even see it, so they can't transmit it. So I think it is a miracle that we have that type of medicine and technology available to us now. So we should be trying to take advantage of it, utilize it, test to know your status, get tested. Because a lot of people are walking around here in denial. Like I said, we have to be responsible for our health. So I'm amazed by it. And I hope more people learn that this is no longer a disease that says you can only live for a few more years. No, you can have a long life, Magic Johnson. Right. You can have a long life.
Right.
A lot of other people. And Magic looking good and thick and nice. And yeah, he is. Because he takes care of himself and he takes these preventative medicines that the captain is talking about.
Absolutely.
So Captain Marsh, it's a couple of questions that come to my mind. Is one is are we closer to a cure, or should we not even include that as part of the conversation at this point? Because I think people are saying, oh, so does this mean that there's going to be a cure for AIDS? First, I'm gonna ask that question: are we closer, or should we, or is that like a unnecessary part of the discussion?
Yeah, I think at this point in time, there's always research, to get to a cure. But I think that Suzette said something that's really important, if I can go back to that. And it is about testing, but it's also about educating folks in our community about HIV. And young folks don't even think it's an issue anymore because they don't hear about it like it, we used to hear about it years and years ago. But there are a couple of things that I think are really, really key. Like Suzette said, get tested. HIV does not discriminate, not at all. And people think that it's only an infection amongst gay or bisexual or men that have sex with men. While in large part they do represent the majority of folks that have HIV, but there are also heterosexual women, transgender persons that get HIV as well. It doesn't discriminate. And the big takeaway is just to get tested. And, we're still training up providers. Our providers in the Ryan White HIV program are wonderful. That's why we have a viral suppression rate that really touts our success. However, it doesn't seek care there. But what we're encouraging people to do is when you go see your primary care provider, make sure you ask them to test you, and just remember, it isn't a death sentence.
Right.
There's one other thing that I wanted to say just about advances in treatment. So what we've been talking about are antiretroviral therapies, right? If you do have HIV, but there's also PrEP. And so just the majority of people that are eligible for PrEP. So PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis. And it's a pill or injection that you can take once a day or an injection once a month that will prevent you from getting HIV. So if you are at risk, and you talk to your provider, you can be prescribed PrEP. And when you talk about the disproportionate share of HIV, it's disproportionate share of HIV amongst racial and ethnic minorities, especially Black folks, but it's also in the prescribing of PrEP and the retention and care for antiretroviral therapies. So people need to know that there is a pill that does work if you are at risk that you can take. Now, one other thing I wanted to add is if you have had sex with someone that you feel that is HIV positive, or you feel that's at high risk, within 72 hours of having contact, you can be placed on antiretroviral therapies to prevent you from getting HIV. So there's a lot of different ways to prevent, and to stay healthy if you do have HIV. But the key, testing as well to prevent new cases.
All right, and so Kat, so you dropping some great things here, right? Now here's the other part, because you know what I'm about to say, because you've been doing this work.
I got you.
But the other part of it is, as much as you talk about being tested, knowing your results, there's this cultural barrier that we haven't yet penetrated, which is at least having these conversations, especially in this day and time of the hookup. We're in like a hookup culture when it comes to dating. We're even in marriages, not having this very responsible conversation and saying, hey, look, it's getting hot and heavy between us. The vibe is on. The conversation is straight. I want to take it to the next level. Or have you been tested? And the people, I don't know anybody, Kat, who's going to be like, no, I haven't been tested. No, I don't know my results. And no, I don't have AIDS or HIV, right? So how do we have a very real conversation? I'm saying among ourselves as Black folks and among men and women, men and men, whoever. How do we have these conversations today? Because I'm from Baltimore. In Baltimore, I found out that Baltimore ranked in the top 5 cities. And we had less than 600,000 people in the city of Baltimore. We're ranked in the top 5 cities in America with STDs and other sexually transmitted diseases. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, people aren't having these conversations.
No.
People just aren't having these conversations, Captain Marsh. And I'm trying to figure out, in 2022, you can't just go around just dipping and slipping.
That's true. That is
slipping and sliding. You can't just and then with no questions.
City girl and city boy summer is over. Y'all hear me?
Exactly.
I'm blown away. You can't, without having the conversation, not even a single discussion have you been tested? So what needs to be done on that end, Cap?
I think we have to, there's a lot of stigma still about HIV in our community, right? And even just talking about sex, and especially if you're talking about the areas of the country that have the highest incidence of new infections, which is the South. Still talking about sex is kind of taboo. But I think that programs such as this, help to get the word out and to educate people. And if people hear this conversation over and over again, it starts to normalize that conversation. It starts to make it okay to have that conversation. But I also think that, as Black folks, it's incumbent upon us to be message multipliers, right? And so doing that also helps to normalize the conversation. And I think if people realize too that HIV is not a death sentence, that's a help. But the other important piece to this is about education. So sometimes we get questions, should, we talk about this in high schools? Should we talk about it in middle school? I think we do need to talk about it. And that would help to reduce stigma.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And this is why I want to go to some of our comments, because I think people know. And again, I get it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, Suzette, when emotions run high, you feeling somebody, you're not thinking about that thing. There is a trust factor that is really there, right? And having this conversation will make it seem like you don't trust the person. But guess what? Why should you trust the person wholeheartedly? Like if they, unless you have gone through the gauntlet or something. I mean, like,
Sister Laura Hill said, if they'll lie to God, they'll lie to you. So we should have been learned. It's 2022, y'all. And I think also I've heard it mentioned, there's a culture sometimes of politeness among Black people when it's almost like the new don't ask, don't tell. I don't want them to think I think they're this, so I'm not going to bring it up. And I don't want them to ask me, so I'm not going to bring it up. Oh, no, it's time out for that. We definitely need to be responsible for our sexual health. So it has to be hey, what's up? Let me see your health department record or whatever. Did you go get tested? Let me know. I'll see you Saturday. We really need to make that, especially among folks who are coming of age and are now explorative in terms of the sexual landscape that happens in high schools and colleges, and then as young adults and into adulthood. We need to start those conversations age appropriately, early enough so people think of this as a norm. Oh, show me your test. Show me your test. Okay, we're good. High fives. Instead of this kind of impulsivity that we see in pop culture, that people are just supposed to break down and let's go and we think about it tomorrow. No. This could save your life. As Captain pointed out, the fact that you could get preventative medicine even after HIV exposure to stop you from getting it, that's a breakthrough like I can't even explain. So the testing process, the not being afraid to ask another human being, hey, you mind if we do this before? It's super important. So we have to be telling our young people that. We have to tell our peers that. Everyone is responsible for, again, hopefully bringing these numbers down across our communities. Once we start having these, this politeness removed, where we don't want to be rude or we don't want to seem like the garden tool, or we don't want to ask it's like this is going to be, offensive. No, we have to make this a part of normal conversation when it regards to our sexual health.
And this and Suzette and Cap, this is not even just about young people. I'm talking about 30 and 40-year-olds.
What? Oh, take it up. Take it up to 50s.
This is not, I'm not talking about 30, 40, 50-year-olds. I'm not talking about the 20-year-olds.
True, especially among, for example, women who are no longer able to have children. They think, oh, I'm free.
That's right. That's right.
STDs, STIs, HIV, and many more are now increasing among our older adults.
Absolutely.
Because they're like, oh, I can't have no baby. Okay, we these streets.
You wind up shooting up the club.
But and again, when you're at these retirement homes and in these retirement communities, you have less men than women. So you have fewer men, a lot of single women living into older adulthood. So there's a lot of mix and matching going on. We don't like to think about grandma doing whatever, but it's happening. So yes, I agree with you, especially among the generation where it was like, the 70s or before, people was just doing whatever. We almost have to re-educate and have them kind of become a part of that conversation. I agree with you, Farajii.
Hey, let me just go to some of our culture crew, because they getting raw with it. No pun intended. As we're having this conversation. But let me go to, love oneself. Love oneself. You said, I will not put my life at risk to feel good.
Hello, somebody.
Okay. But again, like, look, this is not to throw shade or to demonize having sexual desires or even, having sex. It's just about being smart about it, right? Like just recognizing that this exists, that this hasn't gone away. We're living with HIV/AIDS. We haven't done away with HIV/AIDS, and so it's those type of things. I think, just to let people know, like, no, this is not. You can have, if you choose to have sex with multiple partners, that is certainly your choice. But know that there may be some very high consequences as a result of that.
Be responsible.
And so, it's just about being responsible. Janelle, you said, what's up with those legislators that don't want to approve PrEP because they believe that it condones a lifestyle? Captain Marsh, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, there are barriers depending on where you live, right? And so, in the type of insurance that you may have. Now, one thing I can say, at least for we have community health centers. So the Ryan White program was designed to help folks that have HIV and to provide medication support and care and treatment. But we do have community health centers across the country that see people that provide primary care services and see people regardless of their ability to pay. And if you were to visit our website, www.hrsa.gov, and click on the community health centers and find a community health center, you can find one within your local area that will see you. And if you want to be prescribed PrEP, you can get those services at the community health center.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Captain, what is HRSA doing to what are some of the events or some of the activities that are going to be happening tomorrow as we celebrate World AIDS Day?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, it's a time where all of our federal agencies typically have a celebration of sorts. And so for us at HRSA, we have an event tomorrow where we are have invited people with lived experiences, as well as some of our partners that work in the HIV community, to talk about their experiences with HIV or supporting people that do have HIV. If you look on hiv.gov, you'll see a lot of tweets, a lot of posts. We in partnership with some of our stakeholders and other community-based organizations are just having a wide variety of events. The main events really are targeting getting the word out about HIV and the advances in care and treatment, and the importance of testing, in addition to just honoring people that have lost their lives to AIDS-related illnesses, and to show our support for people that do have HIV.
Awesome. That is awesome. And I want to make sure, Captain Marsh, that we put out the website for HRSA. What's that website so people can get all the necessary information about World AIDS Day and the work of HRSA? Because you guys are doing some phenomenal work getting the word out there about why this is so important. So what's the best resource for people to go to?
For the Ryan White program, it's www.ryanwhite.hrsa.gov. And for Find a Health Center, where you can be seen regardless of your ability to pay, it's findahealthcenter.hrsa.gov.
Absolutely. This is right now, Suzette and Cap. I think that we are at a very pivotal point. And I think that the story of Magic Johnson has given a lot of people, not to say false hope, I don't want to use that term, but it's an anomaly, and he's an anomaly in the sense that he has the resources. He was able to get the necessary, the proper care that he needed. Absolutely. But of course, we know that that's not the story of everyone, right? That's not the story of everyone. But the big thing, and Captain Marsh, tell me if I'm wrong on this, the big thing that I'm hearing now is that if you find out that you are infected, that you can still live, you can still thrive, you can still have a good life. You just have to take the necessary precautions if you find out that you're infected. Take the necessary medications, and then start that process. Is that I'm hearing that correctly?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And Farajii, I just wanted to add, while there's 1.2 million people in the US that have HIV, 1 in 8 people don't know they have it because it takes 10 to 12 years for you to be symptomatic. And so that's why we very much encourage testing, really amongst anybody that is having sex, because you don't know, and HIV doesn't discriminate.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Suzette, I'm wondering, as we close out this part of the conversation, I'm wondering, when your family member, you said it was your cousin, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What was the conversation after your cousin passed away around HIV/AIDS in your family? How did your family have that conversation about what happened?
It was quite hush hush. I mean, people, the stigma, we didn't want it to get out. Like, I remember it being like, but it wasn't something that you wanted other people to know at that time. And that's probably early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I was a little girl. I just remember being a Girl Scout, and I remember he passed on Super Bowl weekend. And I just remember it being like at the end stage of his illness. And it was just so sad to see him. Almost, I tell people he looked like a man baby. And he was my big cousin, strong and big. And now he was like almost looking infantile with his hair back to baby hair and his skin smooth. I never seen anything like this in my life. And you can see his joints and things like that. I don't know. I think my family used it as a warning for others, especially the girls. This what'll happen to you. Don't be fast. Don't be out there. That kind of thing. I don't think it was utilized as the teaching tool that it could have been for us, for our church community and beyond. It was definitely something at that time that people ran from, were very quiet and secretive about, and just didn't want people to know. Like, I didn't even speak that for years. I never spoke that my cousin had AIDS. Like, I never spoke it because it was something, again, that has so much stigma attached. But I do think we're trying to peel back the stigma. And I want to acknowledge on this, as we celebrate tomorrow, just that all these people, warriors, people who lost people who, reached out and was doing the testing, or, some people are, controversially positioned on the needle exchanges and things like this. People understand that back in those days, it ravaged people. It ravaged your family and the community at large. So everyone who has been in this fight almost 30 years plus now, shout out to you. Shout out to anyone who has lost someone to this disease and knows firsthand what it's like. But we can't be afraid of it. I'll push back a little bit on Magic Johnson. I think yes, he got the money. But right now, with the programs like Ryan White, they'll pay for your medicine. They'll pay for your stuff. So you too could have a great quality of life. Maybe not, like I say, all the treatments he has is, I agree with you, above and beyond what the regular person most likely will be able to have access to. But you're going to get a darn good medicine and treatment so that you can live with a very high quality of life. So don't be afraid of it. Also, those conversations that need to happen in marriages where people know people tipping and dipping and all this, it gets
and down lowing.
Yes.
You said it.
And down lowing. Look. Hey, look, let's keep it real, man. Like, that's what's happening, right? Relationships are changing. And Captain Marsh, you work in the health and human services field. So you're seeing people at the end of a decision.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like they're coming to you and they're like, Captain Marsh, I made a decision and it didn't work out for me too well. You know what I mean? Exactly. And now you're trying to get them to get back into a better place. But all of that behavior is weighing on us, right? And I'm not talking about the moral side of it. I'm just saying on the health side of it, because you bring that back into the family, right? Like if you all doing all of this stuff and you having these multiple partners, or if that's what you choose to do and as part of your relationship, it is what it is. But whoever the significant one that's in your life, there's the potential that you're going to bring back whatever you were doing back to that person.
That's right.
And there are some implications on that. There are some consequences to that. And that's a hell of a thing that you bring that back to your wife, to your husband, to your partner.
But I think, Farajii,
and
a lot of people think it's not going to happen to them, right? That's something that happens to other people. It doesn't happen to me. And there's lots of stories. You can go online and read stories about people that are, just regular everyday folk, right? Who met somebody, thought that they were the one, whatever that may be, and that person ended up infecting them. So it can happen to anybody. And I think this day and age, if we've learned nothing else over the past couple of years, anything is possible.
Should people get tested, Captain Marshall, every year, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, I would absolutely recommend getting tested every year. And it's a regular blood test. I think there's somebody that put in the chat, can you be still be positive even if you had a negative test? And what I would say to that, I don't know, if you were tested or what type of test, but there are also home tests. So every test is not, I don't know how you were tested. And if you tested yourself, it could be a possibility that maybe the test wasn't done correctly. What I would recommend is that you definitely visit a provider and get a definitive test. And whatever those results are, I would go by those results.
And you should you're saying every once a year, but I mean, if you are really active, sexually
active.
If
you're really active, then you need to get tested more often than that. And there are people that get tested monthly, right?
I'm about to ask, is that too much?
Yeah. No.
Can that be too much on the body? And I'm just saying, on the body, can that be too much where you getting tested monthly?
No, because remember too, now, if you're having unprotected sex, you're also running the risk of having another STI, like chlamydia or gonorrhea or syphilis.
Right.
And if you are active, know yourself, get the test done. It's better to know and better to know in advance. If you are positive, start the antiretroviral therapies and get your viral load down so that you're not passing the virus to someone else.
There it is. Captain Janine Marsh, we thank you so much checking in from HRSA, talking to us about honoring World AIDS Day. That's happening tomorrow. Folks, you want to make sure y'all check out the work that the Ryan White HIV/AIDS program of HRSA is doing to keep people informed and, most importantly, keep us all safe and healthy. Make sure y'all check out the website for HRSA, the Ryan White program. And most importantly, do have the conversation. I can't stress this enough. And nothing else to be said from this discussion. Be responsible, be fully accountable, have these important conversations with that person or those who you are dealing with, because guess what? Once you get it, it's too late then to have the conversation. You can't go back and be like, did you? You don't want to find yourself. And if you do find yourself infected, life is not over.
Amen.
Life is not over. There are many ways, medications and other procedures that you can take to make sure that you are still living and having a healthy, progressive life for many, many years, folks. So HIV/AIDS, as much as people like to add that stigma, it is not a death sentence. You can live with it, but you just need to take care of yourself. Captain Marsh, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And nice to meet both of you.
Pleasure.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause as we come forward. Let's talk about Food and Lifestyle TV and how they're taking the food industry by storm. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause, to long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, for our final conversation here on The Culture This today is we're going to talk about food and lifestyle and how one TV network is planning to take the whole kitchen by storm. We are going to be checking in now with the CEO of Food and Lifestyle TV, Jay DeVille. Devo Harrelson. Devo is on joining us as we have this conversation about the work, the programming of Food and Lifestyle TV, and what we can expect from the network. Devo, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. How are you, bro?
I feel amazing, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I see you on set there, brother. Talk to us about Food and Lifestyle TV. What is this all about, Devo?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Shout out to you and to Mr. Roland Martin for having a platform so we have these conversations like the ones you guys just had a chance to listen to what was being said. And in our family, we need to have these conversations. So I want to first start off by saying thank you for what you guys are doing.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, sir.
It's really a fairly simple idea. Within our own culture, we don't have enough media ownership. So that means oftentimes we can't tell our stories our way. We can't feature our stars and celebrities in the ways that we want to, with an authentic voice that speaks to who and what we are. We are a Black-owned streaming network. We feature food. We have our own kitchen studio, which you see here in the cultural mecca of Atlanta, Georgia. We also feature lifestyle programming. And the idea was simply to find folks and let them be who they are. So our folks approach food television a little different than what we see in the industry.
Yeah.
You know, as our culture is, we are enthusiastic about food. We are expressive
Come on,
about
bro.
food.
Food is everything, Devo.
It's everything. And you watch
everything.
You watch a lot of food television, and
Yep.
They're not excited about the food they're eating. They're not excited about the food they're making. It kind of looks like work. And if you've been in anybody's grandma's kitchen on a holiday, it's active. There's people, there's energy, there's discussions. Somebody's probably sipping on something. Somebody may just come back inside from taking a walk. But that's how the culture is. But that doesn't take away from how amazing the food is. And so what we do is we give executive chefs, so maybe somebody's, early 30s. They've trained in France. They've run restaurants. But at the end of the day, they're still who they are. So why do you have to be always buttoned up to the neck in a chef coat with a Chef Boyardee hat and in performance mode when you can just be you and cook your behind off and show us the different spices and the mixes and all the techniques that you've learned over the course of your culinary journey. So that's what we do. Oftentimes in front of a live audience. We have competition shows. Our set is designed so it can be one-on-one next to each other. So, when you have the two competing plates of macaroni and cheese for the holidays and each cousin wants to claim the title, well, we have that hash out right here on the network live in front of an audience. Dragonfire Kitchen is the name of that show.
Hey, Devo, first and foremost, that is dope. Second, just make sure they don't throw no tomatoes in the mac and cheese, because I've seen some people make some violations on that level.
Well, see, that's the key, though. So that what happens is we have judges from the culture. So you have other chefs, other influencers, other restaurateurs. And, in our culture, we speak the truth. If it's fire, we say it's fire. If it's not, we're going to let you know that, too. And so...
Hey, Devo, how often does that happen, though? How often do you bring on somebody and you be like, you know what, you try their cooking and you be like, this some bulls.
Well, what happens is it's different for a chef when you've got the lights on, you have the timer going. So we have the countdown timer. You have other chefs who maybe you respect who are judging, and our judges come into the kitchen and walk around and look at the pots and pans and ask questions. You've got an audience of people watching you. And we serve drinks during the filming, so the audience is expressive. So the timing gets the best of some of the best chefs. Some of the best laid plans don't quite work out once the Dragonfire timer starts running down. So we have had chances where sometimes it wasn't amazing, but sometimes it truly is. So
right.
But
here's what I love.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, brother, and then we're going to bring Suzette. I'm going to give you a chance to pose some questions. But here's what I love, Devo, is I'm starting to see that there is a growing trend among Black creatives to create a space for Black folks, right? Of course, like here on Black Star Network, it came out of a space. It came out of a place where Brother Roland said, you know what? Black folks don't have certain programming. We're not talking about having certain conversations, right? So Black Star Network came out of that place, right? Of course, he's been in the mainstream space, but he said, but what about culturally relevant conversation? You're saying, hey, we as Black people, we don't have food shows. We don't have a food television network that speaks to our culture, that speaks to our eating, that speaks to our diet. So I'm starting to see this more. I see it on the sports side of things. I'm wondering, do you foresee that this is going to really kind of serve as the beginning of a revolution in terms of how we doing it? Yeah.
Revolution's already started. We are born out of the same mix that Roland's business started out of. mainstream doesn't allow you to be both black and excellent at the same time.
Damn.
And
wait a minute, hold on, Pastor. Can you say that again for the people in the chat?
So my career background, I was a corporate lawyer for companies you've heard of for 30 years. You're not allowed to be black and excellent at the same time.
Dang.
And that's across all fields. So in my field, for the chefs, for news folks, it's the same. You can't be both. And what I see happening is I was at, there's a business here in Atlanta called the Legacy Center. 15,000 crowdsourced Black people built a event space. Inside, it's decorated with newspaper headlines from over the years. They have a whole wall, for example, dedicated to contemporaneous coverage of the Tulsa riots in Greenwood. And I just kept thinking, you know, we're kind of headed back to where we are taking all the skills that we've learned, all the schooling we've got, or the experience that we have, and building for our own. I don't know the exact number, but African Americans are responsible for like $1 trillion of money here in the United States. What a market! So the idea is not to be exclusive. You know, we're 12% of the population. I'm not trying to build a business only for us, but I want it to be rooted in our culture and what we do in our values. And then other businesses often benefit from our culture. I remember the TikTok sit down about a year ago, as Black creative decided, no, you need to see what this platform looks like without our energy. But that's a Chinese company with an American subsidiary. That's not us that benefits from all the dances. Every time you run a Cuff It challenge, the platform isn't ours, but that's our culture. So what I see happening is not just the young creatives, but people around my age and a little younger that have had experience out in corporate and have decided that they want to take their skills and oftentimes are bypassing other more lucrative opportunities in order to help build something for us. So we are one of them. You guys are another one of them.
Yeah. Suzette, that sounds like it's right up your field, sis.
Listen, as an attorney who knows how conservative the legal field still is, don't let anybody fool you. The powers that be that created this system wasn't intending for people that look like me or you, sir, to be fully invested in it and participative from points of advocacy. Probably more so of being on the receiving end of the law, but that's a whole nother discussion. When you talk about your channel, first of all, I'm so excited. Two things came to mind: healthy eating, praise God, because there are so many parts of our cultural heritage that we are clinging to that sometimes in this modern context needs to be enjoyed sparingly, or with really substitutes, so that we are not ingesting high fat and sugar and salt, which we know because we were left with certain parts of, the cow, the pig, or whatever. As we look back at our history here in the United States, we learned to make the best and most flavorful meals from them. So do you have programming that addresses I don't want to say healthy eating, but encompasses the aspect of we can make good food that is also good for you? And I also wanted to ask if you have any components in your programming that talk about the heritage of where our food and our cooking styles come from. I remember when I first saw, and hate to plug another show on Netflix, High on the Hog, and talking about where Black chefs did, all kinds of things to food that we now consider to be American. And we don't really get credit for how much we have shaped our culture. We know this music and all kinds of stuff, and every part we are major contributors to, but sometimes kind of get glossed over in history. So are you doing any programming that centers around, listen, you eat this every day, you're welcome? Like, do you have any historical kind of framing of what we've made and contributed to the American landscape in terms of cuisine?
So this is why it's so much fun to have ownership, because you've identified needs that we have. I've never talked to you. I did not get these questions in advance. We have a partnership with, so here in Atlanta, in Georgia, Piedmont Hospital is one of the major hospital groups. And we've partnered with the Heart Health program. And so we've actually had a couple of specials where we feature a chef who cooks traditional foods in a non-traditional way. And so Chef Gail comes in and with her Foodology 101, and she makes amazing vegetables and really good food. So it's a way for you to enjoy collard greens and other foods that we have in a healthy way.
Nice.
And so now we've got a mix of programming. So we definitely have people cooking traditional foods and the things that we enjoy and the comfort foods. But we absolutely try to balance that because obviously that's important to us. I'm an African man of a certain age, so I'm aware of certain health requirements in terms of how you eat. I've got family. We've all had grandparents that have been through life. So yes, we're very much aware of that. We've got a couple of shows that focus on mental health because it's not just what we eat, it's the things that we deal with. So we actually have Black doctors on the team who have got programming that talk about how do you deal with relationships, how do you deal with stress from work, because again, those are things that we need in our community. Chef Bella Jones actually believes and channels the ancestors, and so we have a show on Black food history with her, and she breaks down where some of your favorite recipes come from, and she is completely authentic and doesn't hold back when she talks about whether they were enslaved people who created recipes, where they were enslaved people who helped write cookbooks and teach and taught the people who get credit for some of these recipes. And she breaks all that down for us. So yes, these are the kind of things that we talk about. Like she'll talk about the Hercules, who's George Washington chef, or the Hemmings who were cooking with Thomas Jefferson, and how the first ladies always get credit for those recipes. But do you really think Martha was back in the kitchen coming up with new recipes?
Yeah, we know who was back there. We know who was
Right,
back
right,
there.
right.
Come on now.
Right.
So we talk about that. There's a move apparently to erase a lot of the history, and if you don't own the platform, you can't really say much about it. But if it's your platform,
tell your own story.
Tell your own story. You got that exactly right. So that's what we're doing.
Hey, Devo, what been some of the big challenges for you and for the Food and Lifestyle TV that you had to overcome? And can you share a couple of lessons that you with our audience, who are mostly made up of Black folks from across this country that are tuning in today? And I'm sure thousands more are going to be tuning in on the replay. I know that for sure. So what are some of the big things that you want us to learn as you grow this? Because as much as you are doing some great work, we're doing great work here at Black Star Network, you're doing great work with Food and Lifestyle TV. I come out of the Black media space. I understand that that has been the crux of my time in media, has been Black media. But sometimes, as much as we're doing all these great work, some people still will say that's not enough or it's not as valuable. So talk to us a little bit about some of those lessons that you learned and really letting people know why it is important that they invest, take the time to watch the network, invest in the network, and support the network overall.
Well, so the first challenge was a very personal one. So you see, I've got a gray beard, but new media is younger. So the challenge was, I'm here with my business partner, Jay Young. He doesn't quite have the gray beard, but we're similar in age. When I was first exploring the business, I attended the NAPI convention in Miami. That's where people who produce TV shows go to meet with networks that buy TV shows, and it's a marketplace. And this is the time when the industry was changing. Cable had been king, but you could tell that things were going to be going a different direction. And there just were very, very few African Americans in ownership. And so I was thinking, wow, the entire industry is about to change. And even after it changes, we'll be kind of in the same position that we're in. So I understood that we had to be new, to be trailblazers, but then would my sensibilities match the young audience? And so we overcome that by bringing in, including, and empowering the people we want to reach. So while we own the business, the young chefs we work with are very much empowered to give us suggestions. When we do their TV shows, we don't just tell them what to say or do. We reflect off of how they talk, how they want to present themselves. One of the first things you learn is that chefs don't really like wearing chef coats. So, we're like,
that's interesting.
So if you don't want to wear a chef coat, you want to wear an apron, you want to wear your outfit, do you? And so what happens is they speak directly to their audience. If you have a group of friends, somebody might be an athlete, somebody might be corporate, somebody's a chef, but you're all still friends. Being a chef doesn't take you out of the culture, out of your circle. So we allow them to come in and bring their circle and bring their feel and their vibe into the studio, into the kitchen. And so that was how we overcame the first challenge. The other thing is interesting point that I want to speak on, which is that you can build a successful business by doing the right thing and being good to people. You know, you always see these lessons that in order to be successful, you've got to stab people in the back and you've got to play hardball. And actually, no, you don't. Have principles, live your principles. As a leader, espouse those principles and teach it to the people that you work with, from your vendors to your talent, to the folks that you're in the trenches with. And you can actually build a culture of supportive people, of interactive people, of feedback. So that when people come to the studio, they say things like, this is good vibes. It feels like family. But that's intentional. So that was something that when we started, we weren't sure, you know, if having good vibes and good feelings was going to be good for business. But that's what we wanted to do. And that was successful.
It's very successful. Hey, Keenan and Ariel, I want to share to my team, if they can pull up foodandlifestyletv.com, I want y'all to take a look at look at this, man. Look at the website here. I mean, this is just dope. This is just dope. Just the number. And if you can scroll down to the bottom very quickly, team, because they have like a listing of all of their programs. And folks, I would highly recommend that y'all check out Food and Lifestyle TV. Take a look at that. They got a number of programs, Black chefs. These are folks in the culinary space that you probably wouldn't see on any other platform, right? You probably would hear about it here and there, but you got a platform for Black chefs. And of course, you know, as we do on this show and on this platform, you know, we highlight Black excellence in the kitchen. We highlight Black excellence. And of course, you got to pay because you got a membership plan. Because this stuff ain't free, Suzette.
No, production has costs.
January
Part
1.
of growth. Let's go. It's a business as well. Yes.
January 1, we're accepting subscriptions. So you can sign up now for emails. There'll be a day one discount. But absolutely.
This is exactly. And look, let me just tell y'all, this is my personal philosophy. If Black folks don't put other Black folks on, then what are we doing? You see what I'm saying? Like, the reason I wanted to have you on the show, because I wanted to highlight the work you're doing. And I'm not worried about, look, y'all support Food and Lifestyle TV. You can support Black Star Network. You can support, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can support. The fact is, I'm personally tired of Black folks, Black companies being at odds with one another for white dollars.
Wow.
Right. And we're not lifting each other up. And Suzette, you work in the TV space as well. You see it just as much as I see it. Roland talks about it tremendously, extensively. So, you know, and we're at this place in our culture where we have to lift each other up. I don't care where your dollars go to. Let them, they can go to Devo, they can go to Roland and us here at Black Star, they can go whoever. But if you're supporting a Black platform, then you're doing what you're supposed to do. And we'll get those blessings back, man. I think that's the other part about it too, Devo, in terms of, you know, like the support that you get. I'm sure that with your production costs, I'm sure with your chefs, they could, and you said, I think you said it earlier when you're talking about they've passed up lucrative opportunities to be in the space with you. And I mean, we just got to make that sacrifice, because it can't just be about the almighty dollar when you got a whole culture of people that are yearning for Black programming, yearning for Black food TV, yearning for Black news TV. There's got to be more than just the almighty dollar. There has to be a spirit, a love there to connect with one another, because this is truly for the culture.
You know, I'd like to jump on that, because I don't think they have to be exclusive. I don't think that's what you're saying.
No.
I think what happens a lot of
exactly.
times, if the target audience is Middle America, and you want Middle American dollars, and you want sponsors trying to reach Middle America, that's going to dictate your programming. If you made any one of us a GM of a mainstream brand, we might add a little sprinkling of melanin, but if we had P&L responsibility, there's only so far you can go.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We're building this, and you guys are building yours for this audience. So the sponsors who want to reach this $1 trillion market can come work with us. And there's enough of us and there's enough money in our community. There was a Cullinan pulled it out of our parking lot here 20 minutes ago. There's enough money in our community to support our own brands. And what you referenced early on, that's starting to happen. One of the things that we're starting to notice too, and I think our PR, Shala, had a chance to connect us together. There's this new movement of African-American spirit owners. And during the pandemic, a lot of folks left corporate to create their own wine companies, their own tequila companies. And there's this sense that, well, if I'm going to go to the liquor store and get a bottle anyway, let's face it, most liquor tastes kind of similar. So it's just as easy to pick up an African-American owned brand as it is to pick up one of the other known brands. And so we've got this Drink Black initiative where we're starting to highlight African-American owned spirits. That doesn't mean you can't drink something else. We're pretty open around here. We're not exclusive, but certainly if all of us started to have a bottle or two, you could support a lot of businesses, and now they can hire our folks. We can market to our folks, use our language, and people don't have to choose between being Black or excellent.
There it is. There it is. Devo, I got to let you go just for the interest of time, but I truly, truly appreciate you, brother, so much. And more importantly, the great work that you guys are doing at Food and Lifestyle TV, because it's given us a space of to see Black excellence in the kitchen. And so I thank you, brother. I really, really thank you for being on the show with us today. And I know Suzette is going to be coming down to Atlanta very soon to try to get some good home cooking.
Let's go.
Hey, hit us up.
I'm going to add my little island spice. I'm going to put my little island spice. I was going to ask you, do you have any Caribbean or chefs that got a little island flavors going on?
We absolutely do. And we're in a time, but we're big on the diaspora.
Nice. I can't wait to check you guys out. Yeah.
The language we speak depends on which boat stop we got off on, but we all come from the same family.
Hello, somebody. Let's go.
So we absolutely we got some island correspondence. We filmed in Jamaica. Yes, absolutely.
That's beautiful.
Well, I can't wait to try some recipes. They told me I can't really cook like that, but we're working on it. Praise God. But thank you.
Put your toe on the shoulder with somebody. Foodandlifestyle.com. January 1 subscriptions available. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you, Devo. Thank you so much, brother, for being on the culture and being so good for the culture. Thank you, dear brother.
Right now.
All right. Man, oh man, Suzette.
This has been
amazing. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Are we done?
Yeah. All right. Suzette, I appreciate you, sis. Thank you so much for tuning in. And more importantly, we're expecting to see you every Wednesday more often. So you are officially a contributor. Folks have enjoyed your commentary, Suzette. Folks have certainly thought that your analysis was on point. So I'm just so happy that we were able to make this happen for you today.
Oh no, you're amazing, and I'm just excited to add to this wonderful platform where we could just make ourselves kind of more aware of what we do and why we doing it and how we can improve. Just like this last gentleman, if we want good Black content, we got to support good Black content, and that used to be at the fore of our minds. We have to kind of readjust and make it our North Star again. How am I spending my money? You spend money every day. How are you spending it? And are you using it with intention? Hey, once we start doing that, let's go. We're rebuilding the Black culture into what we want it to be. So thank you for having me. This was fun.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for being on, and thank you for your expertise and analysis. And we look forward to reconnecting with you next Wednesday, God willing. And more importantly, thank you for being so good for the culture, Suzette. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Farad. Thank you for everything you're doing and for allowing me to kind of contribute to what you already had going on here. So I'm excited. This was a lot of fun. Can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here on The Culture. Thank y'all so much. So happy to be back and joining you live. But thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to get more information about food and culture, food and lifestyle, make sure y'all check out the website. And then on that point, make sure y'all go to our website at blackstarnetwork.com, where we're always streaming something. So many of you have joined us, and I think I saw it from my sister Janelle or one of our other culture crew members talking about, since Brother Roland did that fantastic election night coverage, that our subscribers have gone up crazy numbers. So for all of those who are just tuning in to the Black Star Network, to the culture in particular this afternoon, welcome, welcome, welcome. We truly appreciate you. And we hope that you find that this conversation and these discussions and this platform is suitable and more importantly, qualifies for your support. So make sure y'all go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com and make sure you download the app for free, subscribe to all of our, to Brother Roland, to all of the platforms, and more importantly, make sure you friend Black Star Network on IG and Twitter. And while you're on social media, make sure y'all friend me. I'm looking for some new friends. You know, my account was hacked on IG. I was a little bit more popular, not so much, but I am looking to get so many more people on to my account. So y'all can check me out at The Real Farajii on IG and Farajii on Twitter. And let's continue to build the community of the online culture crew. Folks, we got some dynamic people coming on tomorrow and Friday. We got another dope culture crew member. She's going to be joining us on Friday. Very, very excited and looking forward to having her insight as well. So just stay tuned. A lot of great things continue to happen here on The Culture. But stay tuned. Up next at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as always, is RMU, Roland Martin Unfiltered. Make sure y'all tune in to that. And as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Peace.